When I look back on my life, I realize just how much, if I'm honest, my life has actually been dominated and kind of motivated by fear. Fear of not being good enough or not being cool, fear of the unknown, fear of predominantly getting punished or getting in trouble, kind of this performance fear. And it's actually taken me years to realize that grace is a better way, love is a better way, but a lot of us, we stay in that first one. We don't actually realize how much of our lives is really revolving around this source of fear. But if you look at it, that's usually where burnout comes from, that's where despair comes from, that's where kind of this bitterness comes from with others, with God, with yourself, whatever it is. And I think there's a story I think of that kind of shows where a lot of us are, and where I think a lot of us should be, or where we can be, or what a better way is. And it's actually pretty much the identical story with one or two glaring differences, and it comes from mythology. It's the concept of the sirens. Now, if you know this story, the sirens, when they show up, they kind of change depending on what story you read, but predominantly they're this kind of creature, this mythical-like creature that kind of live on an island or near an island, and when a ship is passing by, they kind of seduce, they kind of lure, they kind of bring you in with their entrancing voices and music, and then it's kind of this trap where when they finally get you, you almost can't say no. It's like a hypnosis, and when you finally go that way and you get to them, there's a point of no return. They shipwreck you, take your stuff, or whatever it is that the story is lending itself to. Now, the first one I think of is in the Odyssey with Odysseus. Now, the story of the sirens in this one, Odysseus knows when he's taking a ship as the captain that they're coming. He's heard about them, he knows what's going to happen, and so he actually commands all his men to stuff wax in their ears so they can't actually hear and be hypnotized by the seduction of the sirens. But because he's captain, he actually needs to not have wax in his ears so he can hear if something happens, so he actually tells the staff and the people on the ship to tie him up to a pole on the ship so that he can be the only one without wax in his ears, but at the same time won't be able to steer the ship. And what's funny is when he actually comes to the sirens, you can imagine what happens, right? All these other men have wax in their ears, so they're fine, and they're not seduced per se. But then you look at Odysseus, and you can just imagine the writhing, right? He's almost going crazy, wanting to get let go because it's so hypnotic and it's so entrancing and luring. And it says that the men actually tie him up tighter every time he tries to get away. Now, there's another story that's actually almost identical to that story, but with one glaring difference. And this one is actually an Argonautica. And you look at this one is actually Orpheus in a similar position as Odysseus. Now, when Orpheus is coming by with the ships, he again knows it's going to happen or knows what's about to happen. And he begins to hear the sirens before he's able to prepare or do anything. And his men, because of the seduction, they almost start to become hypnotized in this lure of the sirens, and they actually start to go to the edge of the boat to jump in. They want to leave. They want to go after. They can't say no. It's impossible for their bodies, their minds, their emotions, their chemistry to say no to just how powerful the siren's voice and music is. But it's in that moment, Orpheus, who's actually a beautiful musician himself, gets out his lyre, right? His L-Y-R-E, his lyre, and it says he actually played better music, so loud, so much louder, so much better, and so much more beautiful, it actually drowned out the music of the siren to the point where the men on the boat kind of turned back around and returned, realizing that that music was better, and it actually drowned out the sirens. I think it actually says that their ears were filled with the twangings of his lyre. You see that beauty there. Now, the reason I tell those two stories is because I think that perfectly sums up kind of the difference between fear and love, or this false, shallow religious obedience, like I have to do, or else God's going to hate me or throw a lightning bolt down on me or whatever. And a lot of us were stuck in that. I have to do this, this, and this, and this. And when temptation comes, I need to just tie myself up to my Christian obedience. But God's not pleased with that. God, in fact, that's not even what He's after. Right? When you realize that Jesus comes and when He dies and resurrects and He is bringing the kingdom down on earth as it is in heaven, you realize that Jesus is actually better music. Jesus is a lot like the second story, where when temptation comes, grace then begins its symphony, which drowns out the darkness, the idolatry, the counterfeitness of sin. So that's my question with you, is when you hear sin come along, do you burn yourself out? Do you get into despair by tying yourself up to your Christian obedience? Or do you actually listen to the music of grace because it's better? See, the truth is, I'm not saying that it's not like temptation isn't real in the second story. It is. and it happens. But the truth is that grace is playing, and the question is, will we listen? Will we put our ear to it? And it's when we put our ear closer and closer to the heart of Jesus that sin drowns out more and more and more. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. That was actually an adaptation from a story I tell in chapter 8 of Jesus is Greater Than Religion. It's my story, my narrative, my heart. If you want to pick up a copy, it's down there below. There's actually a really cool thing going on right now where Audible is giving away my book completely free, my audiobook, completely free, read by me in my voice and all of that, if you sign up for a free trial with Audible. So click here if you want to actually get that audiobook for free, or you can check out the book down below. But that's all I got. Subscribe, and hopefully see you guys next week.